Random House Audio presents The Amateur Marriage by Anne Tyler, read for you by Blair Brown. Chapter 1. Common Knowledge. Anyone in the neighborhood could tell you how Michael and Pauline first met. It happened on a Monday afternoon, early in December of 1941. St. Cassian was its usual poky self that day, a street of narrow East Baltimore row houses, carefully kept little homes intermingled with shops no bigger than small parlors. The Gulka twins, identically kerchiefed, compared cake rouges through the window of Sweeta's Drugs. Mrs. Posniak stepped out of the hardware store with a tiny brown paper bag that jingled. Mr. Koska's Model B Ford puttered past, followed by a stranger's sleekly swishing Chrysler Airstream, and then by Ernie Moskowitz on the butcher's battered delivery bike. In Anton's grocery, a dim, cram-packed cubbyhole with an L-shaped wooden counter and shelves that reached the low ceiling, Michael's mother wrapped 2 tins of peas for Mrs. Bruneck. She tied them up tightly and handed them over without a smile, without a "come back soon" or a "nice to see you." Mrs. Anton had had a hard life. One of Mrs. Bruneck's boys, Carl, Paul, Peter, they all looked so much alike, pressed his nose to the glass of the penny candy display. A floorboard creaked near the cereals, but that was just the bones of the elderly building settling deeper into the ground. Michael was shelving Woodbury's soap bars behind the longer left-hand section of the counter. He was 20 at the time, a tall young man in ill-fitting clothes, his hair very black and cut too short, his face a shade too thin, with that dark kind of whiskers that always showed, no matter how often he shaved. He was stacking the soap in a pyramid, a base of 5, topped by 4, topped by 3, although his mother had announced more than once that she preferred a more compact, less creative arrangement. Then, tinkle, tinkle, and wham! And what seemed at first glance a torrent of young women exploded through the door. They brought a gust of cold air with them, and the smell of auto exhaust. "Help us!" Wanda Bright shrilled. Her best friend, Katie Vilna, had her arm around an unfamiliar girl in a red coat, and another girl pressed a handkerchief to the red-coated girl's right temple. "She's been hurt! She needs first aid!" Wanda cried. Michael stopped his shelving. Mrs. Bruneck clapped a hand to her cheek, and Carl or Paul or Peter drew in a whistle of a breath. But Mrs. Anton did not so much as blink. "Why bring her here?" she asked. "Take her to the drugstore." "The drugstore's closed," Katie told her. "Closed?" "It says so on the door. Mr. Sweeta's joined the Coast Guard." "He's done what?" The girl in the red coat was very pretty, despite the trickle of blood running past one ear. She was taller than the 2 neighborhood girls, but slender, more slightly built, with a leafy cap of dark blonde hair and an upper lip that rose in 2 little points so sharp they might have been drawn with a pen. Michael came out from behind the counter to take a closer look at her. "What happened?" he asked her, only her, gazing at her intently. "Get her a Band-Aid! Get iodine!" Wanda Bright commanded. She had gone through grade school with Michael. She seemed to feel she could boss him around. The girl said, "I jumped off a streetcar." Her voice was low and husky, a shock after Wanda's thin violin notes. Her eyes were the purple-blue color of pansies. Michael swallowed. "A parade's begun on Dabrowski Street," Katie was telling the others. "All 6 of the Zap boys are enlisting, haven't you heard? And a couple of their friends besides. They've got this banner, 'Watch out, Japs, here come the Zaps,' and everyone's seeing them off. They've gathered such a crowd that the traffic can't hardly get through. So Pauline here, she was heading home from work. Places are closing early. What does she do? Jumps off a speeding streetcar to join in." The streetcar couldn't have been speeding all that fast if traffic was clogged, but nobody pointed that out. Mrs. Bruneck gave a sympathetic murmur. Carl or Paul or Peter said, "Can I go, Mama? Can I? Can I go watch the parade?" "I just thought we should try and support our boys," Pauline told Michael. He swallowed again. He said, "Well, of course."
Sample complete. Ready to continue?